Salutations, respected viewers. I'm George from Ireland, and this is a debate about rail privatisation, or indeed putting railways back into public hands. So I will obviously play both sides of the street. As always, this is a turncoat debate. So I shall commence in the customary manner. Madam President, ladies and gentlemen of the House, this House would derail privatisation. By that we mean, looking only at the United Kingdom, we would reverse the privatisation which took place in the 1990s. So it's only completed in 1997 in the dying days of the John Major government. So the Labour Party fought this tooth and nail. But once it had been completed, and it was a done deal by the time Tony Blair came in, Tony Blair's government, New Labour, said, all right, we accept that, we will not reverse it, which is a complete cop-out. So I come from the other side in this argument. I believed in it, I gave it more than a chance, and it has been catastrophic. There's no doubt about it. It's been a huge failure even in its own terms. There are still delays. Prices in real terms have tripled. So we used to have a decent service at a decent price. We've now got a decent service at an extortionate price. I think I'm right in saying that British trains are the most expensive trains in the world. Out of 193 countries, the UK is at the very top of that. If I'm not quite right, I'm at least very close on that one. So there's still major accidents and rail crashes where dozens of people are killed. Not very often, it's true, but I think they're less frequent than they were before. And services have been cut back. Rural services have been cut back and services are not so frequent and so on. And there's horrific congestion. So people paying for season tickets, paying several £1,000s a year to commute to work on time, they can't be guaranteed in a seat. I remember getting on at Maidenhead before 7 o'clock in the morning, and there was standing room only in standard class. And there's still strikes which can paralyse the whole system. So the system is sclerotic on Sundays. It's a rare Sunday when things work properly. There'll always be railway replacement bus. Wonder why there's never a bus replacement train. That would be a welcome novelty. So we've got to remind ourselves, what do railways exist for? Do they exist primarily for transport or for profit? Clearly, it's transport, right? That is why they are built. They can provide transport and make a profit. That would be acceptable so long as the transport was good enough to warrant that, but they don't. If these two collide, transport or profit, which should take precedence? Surely it's transport, okay? Because people matter, people come first. It's got to be people before profit. There's been profiteering from these companies. I have these boards, they're all paid, these are huge salaries, which obviously comes out of fair prices. Every penny paid to the board is a penny less for renovation, for maintenance, for safety checks, for salaries for the actual platform staff and so on. And what they just do is they just change management all the time. When we had one railway system for the entire United Kingdom, there was just one board. It's split up into several different companies, several boards, and a huge amount of money is wasted. These fat cats have to have their six-figure salaries. Why? It doesn't make things any better. It's ridiculous. It's just to line the pockets of these directors, these executives who know nothing about railways. And they're always changing their logos and so on. And I remember speaking to a chef, and we were on, I can't remember, was it GNER? But his thing said Virgin, because they've been bought and they still hadn't changed his uniform. Wasting time, just changing logos and repainting things. The new livery wastes loads of money. And despite it being privatised, several years after privatisation, taxpayers' money was still going to Virgin Trains just because Sir Richard Branson was mated with Tony Blair. Okay, you're a moderniser like me. Yeah, you can have several billion from the taxpayer every year. It was an outrage. So I changed my mind on this one. And now, yes, competition is good for the consumer, but there is no competition in a monopoly. If there's only one railway line between this town and that town, that's it. You can't have competition. I say, but you can go by bus, which is often a monopoly as well. And just often two companies are not even going to compete on a certain road. And I want to travel by train, not by bus, because it's faster. And bus just won't cut it because I can't get up that early, I can't arrive at work that late, or whatever. So it was always a fallacy to think that the competition model would apply to a situation where there's a monopoly. There's one line between two different towns usually. So Railtrack was taken back into public ownership. Even the Conservatives accept that now, and that's really good the first step towards renationalisation. Remember Jeremy Corbyn, not my favourite politician, saying at Marylebone, meeting lots of commuters coming from the home counties, not natural Labour voters, not exactly red-hot communists. And even they were very amenable to the idea of taking it back into public hands. So privatization has been given a good 20 years and it has been catastrophic. They're just fat cats and robber barons who are ripping us off. So let's not be fleeced any longer. And the money should be going on new railway lines to take the pressure off of the existing railway lines, even new stations to spread the load, particularly in London, about a dozen termini. There need to be more, so that because even from the tube to and from the major stations it's not working, and the buses, so we need to spread things. The rolling stock's all right, actually. We don't need to buy new trains. More stations, upgrading the lines so they can go faster. Things like high speed too. At least the government's investing a bit in that. I suspect it'll be better on signalling. Whenever trains go longer delayed, it's usually signalling they complain about. And a railway worker told me, for the cost of high speed 2, we could sell out all the signalling several times over in the UK, and so much is splurged on one massive vanity project, we could do countless small projects, the totality of which would do far more to improve the life of the travelling public. So we would compulsorily purchase this, and we would just pay reasonable compensation. It could be arbitrated by a court. It's been done before. There was nationalisation in the First World War, in the Second World War, after the Second World War. We tried privatisation in the 19th century. We had public ownership in the First World War and the Second World War, and it worked just fine. So we've got to remember who it's for. The private sector's had a long time to put their house in order to provide a decent service at a decent price, and they're not doing it. They're ripping people off, people are paying through the nose. It's a tax on jobs because you have to pay that just to get to work, and they charge you more to get there before 9:30 in the morning, to even start your journey before 9:30. And then there are these ridiculous things as you and I can be on precisely the same journey, starting from King's Cross, going to Edinburgh, sitting beside each other. I'm paying a tenner and you're paying 150 quid, or something ludicrous. It's outlandish, the difference, just because you booked online and you got a super saver and blah, blah, blah. So we can have logical, fair pricing and make it workable for everyone and better for the railway staff as well as the travelling public. I beg to propose. So, I'm now the opposition, Madam Chair, ladies and gentlemen of the House. We're opposed to this ridiculous idea of taking the railways back into public ownership. Government is not good at this kind of thing. It's been tried before. It's been tried ad nauseum. The idea that the government can run any business, including railways, has been tested to destruction. And that's why it was brought in by the Conservative government, and even Labour, as the other speaker said, accepted it. Now they're humming and hawing about it. Well, if even Corbyn's vacillating, then it can't be a good idea. Passenger numbers have increased enormously, and the population is growing, and the British Rail simply wouldn't have coped. That was the old system when it was all one state-owned company. A change has been made which cannot now be reversed. All right, you cannot unscramble an omelette. We've privatised. It cannot be put back into public hands. Move forward, not backwards. This is a ridiculous retrograde idea, something nostalgic. And you're looking through rose-tinctured spectacles at British Rail. Bastard Rail was its cognomen amongst the travelling public. There were very frequent delays. The trains were usually filthy, and the trains were often very parlous condition. There were frequent strikes, and the staff were notoriously rude and lackadaisical. So we don't want to return to the lassitude of the past. An investment is needed, and the public sector can put some of that in, and is putting it in. So it's just unworkable to think that we can return to the old system. It would be far too expensive. How many tens of billions would be spent on compulsorily purchasing it? And all this money could have been spent on high speed 2 or something like that. So the way forward is we're going to move to driverless trains. We're going to cut costs. And for the one driver gets paid so much to press stop and go, we could employ 2 more platform staff. We could have, they're all got to be first aid trade, things like that. So no party is committed to this, and good reason is the public doesn't want it. I know that the opinion polls are mostly against it when it happened, but people have moved on and they've simply accepted reality. Live in the 21st century. The days of state socialism are long over. We all know it leads to totalitarianism. Just creeps in step by step. Even with the best of intentions, it has disastrous results. So we believe in the free market. You should pay for your own transport, all right? If you don't, cycle, walk from home, drive, whatever it is. You can even work from home. A lot of people are working online these days. So we get better service in the private sector. The trains themselves are in better condition. The strikes are not that frequent. And remember, when we had British Rail, there was one strike paralysed the entire country. We don't have that anymore. We can't be going to paralysis. British Rail had the country by the short and curlies. If they went on strike, that's it. The country shut down. And there were many more problems like that. We have strikes these days. At least they are localised, just in one region. And I know there's some disadvantages of our current system, but still, overall, it's far better than what we had before. And the trains themselves are cleaner, they are more frequent, and the railways, the stations have been upgraded enormously. So for all the reasons I've outlined, I beg to oppose.